Hi everyone and welcome to episode 92 of the Rewarding Property Decisions podcast. Now, when selling real estate, marketing is always key. As the saying goes, you can't sell a secret. So I thought today we would have a look at the way property is now marketed. It's changed drastically from a real estate perspective over the last 25 years. We've gone from purely print advertising to a combination of probably more print and a bit of online, to a complete online with some print, and now really you don't see much print at all. And we're starting to see the generation and how much social media can actually influence real estate sales. So no one better at the moment in the real estate circles around Melbourne to talk to about social media advertising than Luke Saville from the agency. Thanks, Luke. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Jarrod.
Luke's got a fantastic background. He specialises in Boroondara and Stonington, and particularly in the apartment unit market. So there's a real take up in that space, I guess you'd say, for social media, and a lot of Luke's buyers are very active in that space. So, Luke, what you've obviously really developed this, particularly over the past probably 2 or 3 years. It's really started to come to the fore, the social media side of things.
Yeah, I'd say even less than that.
Okay.
Properly anyway. Probably the last 6 months.
Yep.
Is when we've really started to increase the amount of content that we're putting out. Like, we're putting videos out for every property now.
Right.
And the quality of the content is a lot better than what it was a year, 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's been a real targeted thing.
It has, although it sort of fell in my lap a little bit.
Okay.
Because the first one I put up, I'd been holding back for a while, and then a few people had said, you need to get on TikTok and start putting videos out there.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even on TikTok at the time. But I thought, I'll give it a go. And it was pretty quick. Like, it took me a couple of minutes to do a walkthrough of the apartment, speed it up a little bit. Like, there's not a whole lot of processing done to it, but there's a couple of little things that I'll do. And that takes no more than about 5 or 10 minutes. Usually it's like picking the best music to put on as the background. That takes me the longest. But yeah, and I think that first one, which I put up, which was very out of area and off brand for me,
right.
And I probably wouldn't do it again, was a house in Collingwood.
Okay.
And it was sort of what $1 million buys you in Collingwood. And maybe it was the 1 mil Melbourne. And so it got a lot more than just Melbourne people. It was sort of got a lot of international people look at it, a lot of interstate people. But that nearly had 1 million views on TikTok. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm onto something.
Yeah.
Like, this is working.
Was there, was the vendor in that instance pro it, or did you have to push it forward?
I did not even mention it to him.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean, you put it on real estate, you put it on Domain.
Yeah.
We put properties up on social media all the time, but I didn't even think anyone would see it really. I was like, oh, well, might get a few hundred people that see it, but it took off. It had nearly 1,000 comments.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. And so with the when you do put these things forward, now it's gone from being just like you said an add-on. Is it now a key part of your marketing strategy when you pitch to vendors?
It is. Yeah, it is. I mean, I was chatting to somebody about this the other day. Like, when you put a property up on realestate.com and Domain, combined for an apartment in Hawthorn, just use that as a case study, combined you'll get about 6,000 to 8,000 views.
Yep.
Whereas I put one up last night in Hawthorn East. I put it up at about 5 or 6 o'clock last night, and it's already had 10,000 views.
Wow.
Just on Instagram. I think TikTok's had 5 or 6. So yeah, and we're talking 6,000 to 8,000 on real estate and Domain across a 4-week period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're talking, TikTok and Instagram are your two main ones?
Yeah.
And which one of those, and do sometimes some properties perform better on one than the other? And is that more about the buyer profile?
I haven't quite worked that out yet. It's a good question, because that's something I've been trying to figure out at the moment, because some on Instagram will perform really well, whereas on TikTok they don't. And it's the processing and the editing of the video is exactly the same.
Okay.
What may sometimes be different is the music or the background music. But
surely people aren't looking at it just because you've chosen your music.
I hope not. Yeah, I hope not. But I would say TikTok has been very strong for, if I put a property up that's, what $400,000 or $450,000 buys you in Hawthorn.
Yeah.
It's almost, this is a very bold call, but it's getting to the point where it's almost guaranteed that we'll get a buyer that will buy it off TikTok.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is it getting then to the point where, and I know and we'll get to this, but I know you've done a number of sales where it's just purely been social media advertising. It's almost like an off-market sort almost, but you're giving it so much more exposure. Is it getting to a point where people only want to do that? They're coming to you and saying, I only want to sell with social media.
Yep. I've had quite a few of those calls in the last 3 to 4 weeks. I'll still assure them that if they definitely want to sell, I can't guarantee that it's going to be sold off Instagram or sold off TikTok.
Yeah.
But it is a really good way to warm into the campaign.
Yep.
Doesn't cost the vendor anything. And at the very least, you're going to get feedback on what buyers think. You'll get sort of 15, 20, 25 people through the door.
Yeah.
And then the vendor can make the decision, do we feel confident that we can now go to market based on the feedback? Is there anything we can change to the property based on the feedback before we go on the market officially? And so, yeah, I've had a lot of people that are very keen on trying it. It's just something that's it's a little bit outside the box and there's no investment.
Yeah. So with the setting up of it, and I guess when you're going on realestate.com, you've got to have all the high-res photos, all that sort of thing. Whereas with TikTok, what are you doing, or Instagram, what are you doing in terms of preparing for an online or a social media campaign in that regard?
It's very basic.
Yep.
It's a lot more
That's
basic
part
than
of the
what
selling point, I guess.
Yeah. It's simply when the property gets, most of our properties will get staged for sale.
Yep.
But the day that the photography is getting taken, I'll usually get in there an hour before the photos or an hour after the photos. And I'll just take my phone through there. I'll do a walkthrough tour of the entire apartment. It takes in total to do the walkthrough tour usually somewhere between 1 minute and 2 minutes.
Yep.
And then it's pretty straightforward. I'll put it up on TikTok or Instagram. The in-app editing on both of those two platforms is quite good.
Yep.
So I don't have to do it anywhere else. I'll speed it up a little bit. I'll add the 600,000 buys you in, Hawthorn or what it might be. Add a bit of music and then it might be a good little caption, like a bit of a hook at the start to try and get people in. Like we put one up yesterday, which is up on the top floor of the building. It's got the most beautiful views of the city.
Yep.
Can watch the sunsets. I think the caption was something like Melbourne's best hot air balloon views, no ticket required. And it just sort of like people read it and they're like, oh, and then they click on it and
then off you go.
Yeah.
Did you get any hot air balloons going past?
We didn't. I saw some this morning though, and I was
tempted to go and take a video. Now, one of the things that I've needled you about a couple of times when I've seen things come up has been the hashtag slay that has come to fruition.
That's your favourite, isn't it?
It is my favourite, and because I've seen your boards around and I see the hashtag slay up, and I'll shoot you a text message saying, "What are you doing? I know you look like you're only about 20, but you're not." So
I've got 2 kids, and I'm past that point in my life.
So what brought that on? How did that come into play?
I have to say it was the team that I work with. Both of our 2 girls that work in admin are 21 and 22.
Yep.
And so they've played a big part in, what's the right word, sort of Gen Zing the way that we talk and, that sort of TikTok type language.
Yep.
But it hits home for like a lot of the buyers who are buying these apartments are sub 30.
Yeah.
And they get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why the market works in that space, because they do get it and they understand it. Was it hard to I guess it's not, I was going to say, was it hard to convince the first person to go down this path? But as you said, it's not costing them anything. So it's not really an extra for them to worry about. You're just taking this on board as part of your marketing pitch.
Yeah, and it's such a strong sales pitch.
Yeah.
Like you can imagine if you're getting ready to sell your apartment in Hawthorn and an agent says, well, actually, don't worry about skip the $10,000.
Don't spend it.
Skip staging it. Let's just get some buyers through. I'd say on average, most of the time it's a $12,000 to $15,000 investment in, like a lot of these properties are investment properties.
Yep.
Your tenants moved out, like one that we did recently in Fordham Road, very similar. Like your tenants moved out, you put furniture in there, that's $3,000 to $4,000. You put it up on real estate domain board brochure, that's somewhere between 7 and 10. And then you're also got to run a full campaign, so you've got a longer vacancy period, which is costing the owner as well.
Yep.
So it's the best part of $15,000, and it's
that's your standard marketing. What would because you're still most likely with the TikTok, Instagram, you're still probably going to do, as you said before, the styling furniture and things. So what's the cost of doing a purely social media campaign?
You mean just putting it on TikTok and Instagram? There's no cost.
No, but if you're going, I guess if you're taking, because you'd still want to do it staged, wouldn't you? You wouldn't want, ideally.
Yeah,
I guess you
ideally.
don't have to. If people have got really good furniture and it fits really well, you don't need to. But
yeah,
if it was a vacant property,
yeah,
what are the key price differences between a full-blooded campaign? You said it's about 15.
Yeah.
So it's probably what, 3 for the styling, and that's about it.
That's right.
If you went down the TikTok path.
Yeah. But even I put one up last week, which was 400 buys you in Hawthorn. That was vacant.
Okay.
1 bedroom, had 7 people through it on the weekend. We've got an offer on it.
Wow.
So that is quite literally no cost.
Yeah.
And then one that we're at this morning, taking a photo at the front of the new board that we put up, like that, the owner lived there.
Yep.
And her furniture was quite nice. Like
Yep.
she had it presented really well. So again, no cost to her. And the 485 that she sold her 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, Riversdale Road, no car space apartment for, off Instagram, is the best part of 500. Really, like when you think about it, netting in her pocket, she's nearly netting 500,000, which
that's a great effort.
There's no way in hell I could guarantee that she would get that if she went on real estate.
Yeah. You mentioned before about your board, so there's been a couple of them. The TikTok sold, and then there's the one with the explosion emoji, that sort of thing. What we love those, and I think that, and clearly your market does too, because it gets great responses and things online.
The owners' corporations don't.
Yeah, they're all old fuddy-duddies. So what have you got coming up? Is there anything exciting or new or different? Or
we just put one up this morning or over the weekend, but I took a photo at the front of it this morning. That's probably my favourite so far, because the last few that we've put up have been they've been very eye-catching, but to most people that read them, they're like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Whereas the one that we put up, I really wanted to emphasise why we're putting these boards up and what we're actually doing. Like it is making a big difference to sellers, saving on the costs. So the one that we put up over the weekends.
Where is it? Because people might want to go and have a look at it.
Yeah, I don't know how long it'll be up for with the Owners Corporation, but it is 19 Riversdale Road, Hawthorn, so it's right near that
You'll get
intersection.
Some exposure there.
Yeah. But it's a very simple one. It's just got reels, as in Instagram reels, so REELS, deals, and then it's got marketing bills, but it's been struck through, so there's a line through it.
Very good.
And then down at the bottom it says in brackets sold from Instagram, just to make it clear for anyone that doesn't understand what a reel is.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I think hopefully that gets the point across stronger to people
of what's going on.
Yeah.
So, what's your main market? I'm guessing, in terms of, you said earlier that it is predominantly the sort of the Gen Z type market. That's what you're seeing most of your buyers coming from with this. Vendors as well.
Not necessarily vendors. Vendors has been a bit of a mixed bag.
Okay.
Instagram is quite incredible. Like, not so much TikTok, but Instagram, I get plenty of people in their 50s, 60s that will approach me and say, "Oh, we follow you on Instagram and we've seen your videos." But I would also say, because like the years of 2016, 17, that was very balanced investor, first home buyer market.
Yep.
Whereas now, I'd say a good 90% plus of our buyers coming through apartments are first home buyers.
Yep. The investor market, as we know, is not overly strong, particularly in the apartment market at the moment.
No.
And if anything, it's selling rather than buying.
That's where it is strong. And so Instagram and TikTok are capturing nearly the entire market that are coming through these apartments anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which will be interesting to see what happens, because eventually you'd think the investor market will come back in, whether or not it's strong in apartments. But will this social media side of things
catch them?
Will it be as strong then? Yeah. And will you be able to rely on it as much if there is a bit more of a balance of investors and owner occupiers in it? Which will be, only time will tell that, I guess.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you're noticing, or that you think do you see other real estate agents and perhaps different types of properties, like more family homes, that sort of thing, pushing more into this social media type space, or is it more of a first home buyer apartment type thing?
Look, it's hard to say, because I just specialise in apartments and units, and the bulk of those tend to be sort of under $1 million or under early ones. I have seen a few agents that have tried that same sort of hook at the start, what $2 million buys you in Hawthorn, and they don't seem to. It doesn't seem to get the same amount of views and the same traction.
Yeah,
I'm not sure whether that's an algorithm thing. And when we caught up with TikTok in Sydney a couple of weeks ago, I sort of sat down with them, and they were giving me some ideas on what's, how to strengthen the videos.
What works, yep.
What works and what doesn't work. And they were pretty clear. Like they said, you've just kept posting so many of these walkthrough videos that TikTok now just knows your profile, knows what you're looking for. Whereas I think it takes a bit of time as a new agent jumping on there. You can't just expect that you're going to put one up, even though we got lucky with that one in Collingwood. You need to sort of keep putting them up so that it understands what you're trying to target.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. No, it's very. I find it fascinating. I think you've done an amazing job with it. I think it's really good. Can you just let all of our listeners and viewers know your Instagram and TikTok profile so that they can jump on and have a look at it as well?
Yeah, so it's the same for both. It's just Luke Saville, my full name, with an underscore at the end. But I have to say, not on Instagram, but on TikTok, there's been about 3 or 4. I don't have a huge amount of followers on TikTok, by the way, so it's not like I'm some celebrity. But for some reason, I've got about 4 accounts trying to impersonate me.
Is that right?
Yeah. With the
you're doing well if people are trying to impersonate you.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're using it to try and scam people, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
But there are a few of those on there which I've reported. So just if you are looking on TikTok, it's Luke Saville _, and that is it.
We'll put them in our profiles and things so people can click on it and go straight through to it anyway. But look, I really appreciate you coming in. Thank you very much. I'm sure everyone will keep a close eye out on how things keep developing, but you're doing a great job, and thanks for joining me.
No worries. Thank you.
So that's episode 92 of the Rewarding Property Decisions podcast. Given today is about social media, please, if you do jump on, share the podcast far and wide on all your social media channels, and obviously encourage friends and family to get involved. If you'd like further information, please visit our website, wakeland.com.au. Otherwise, we wish you all